Welcome to Haul Around the World, presented by Crushing Comics. I'm your host, Crisis with a K, and I'm here in my home in Wellington, New Zealand, surrounded by a portion of my collection here in this room. And when I want to add comic books to this collection, I have to have them hauled around the world, mostly from the United States, sometimes from other places, to get new comics here. Just like I hauled this whole collection around the world with me in 2017 to get to here in Wellington, New Zealand from my old home in Philadelphia. Now this haul, it's a big one. I'm still catching up on the hauls that were from 2020 and early 2021. Some of them I opened if I really wanted to get a book out and start reading it, but I had a tower of boxes that was up to my eyebrows. And so I'm trying to now just go through them, look at everything, appreciate everything, and get them onto the shelves where they belong. This particular haul is really big, and I can't quite figure out why. Like, I know why I bought the stuff that I wanted and fills gaps in my collections or duplicates things, as you're about to find out. But I don't know why this one was so big. I think maybe I'd been holding off for a month or two, and it was after a lot of these sellouts had happened, so the stuff I really wanted that had sold out quickly, I kind of didn't even know where to get, so I wasn't in a rush to make another order. I'm not really sure, but in any event, it's a pretty big stack. It's a mix of Marvel stuff and some indie stuff, and I want to just jump right in and talk about all of the books. So the first thing I have here is Son of Satan Classic. It's not a volume 1, it's just straight up classic, not to have another one produced. So the first thing is, these classic volumes are not usually this big. If you had like Nova Classic, New Warriors Classic, New Mutants Classic, they usually were not this thick. This is like 2 or 3 worth of those. But it is on a really similar paper that's not only a little bit matte, but it's also not as bright white, which really works for older reprints because they were on newsprint paper, and newsprint paper was never bright white. And so not only would the whites not be as bright, but it takes all other colors differently. If the white has a sort of creaminess, a sort of yellowness to it, and this book has that. But the question is, what is this? And also, why is it not an epic collection? So what this is a capture of the first Damon Hellstrom appearances in Ghost Rider 1 and 2, and then all of his early solo material, which is Marvel Spotlight 12 through 24, Marvel Team Up 32, Son of Satan 1 through 8, and an appearance in Marvel 2-in-1 number 14. There are other appearances of him interspersed between these, but they are either guest appearances in other books. He does show up in Ghost Rider a few more times, or they are appearances in team books like The Defenders. So these are all of the stories of his that you can read solo. And before this, they were either not reprinted or only reprinted in black and white. And so you couldn't get them all in one color collection to read them. Now, given that this is as big as an epic collection, I mean, I could hold up one. I don't want to spoil what's in the rest of this haul, but why wouldn't they just call it an epic collection? Well, because he doesn't really have more solo stories until the 90s. Now, that's not a definitive reason to not do an epic collection. We have other characters, including one in this stack where they barely have any solo stories, but Marvel just slapped the epic name on it because they thought they could have multiple volumes. And this one really, really bothers me because here in my hands, I have another Hellstrom book that should be Epic Collection Volume 2 after that Volume 1. It's Hellstrom, Prince of Lies. And this book makes me angry, not because of what it is, but because of what it's not. First of all, not an epic collection. Probably could have been. And I'm sure he has 1 or 2 significant solo stories that we could have got between that classic and this. But here's the other thing. This collects his 1990 series, Hellstrom, Prince of Lies, 1 through 11, which is great. 11 issues is a decent amount. I mean, it's a pretty thin book. We could have gotten more if it was an epic. But, 11 issues isn't terrible compared to 5 or 6, right? But the rest of this series is written by Warren Ellis, and it was collected in 2018 in an omnibus titled Hellstrom by Warren Ellis Omnibus. And that omnibus painfully starts after this is over. It starts with issue 12. And you're thinking, okay, well, Ellis at the time was a name that really sold books. That's fine. I can excuse that. Except for it's only issues 12 through 21 and then Druid 1 through 4. So it's a combined total of less than 20 issues. It's as an omnibus, it's under 500 pages. It would have been absolutely trivial to put this material in the omnibus to have an all-in-one book. Granted, Hellstrom by Ellis departs a little bit from this initial run, but it's just annoying to me. Why would you do it? They're never going to do this in oversized. Why would they? Even if his TV show came back, and even if it was a hit, and even if he turned into a Marvel movie, why would they put out these 11 issues as their own oversized hardcover? That was their shot, and they got it wrong. Makes me so angry, so frustrated. So this book was printed in when was this printed? In 2020. So I did order it right when it came out, and that omnibus had existed for a few years. And here's my thing. At the point that the omnibus had existed for a few years, why would you not call this Epic Volume 1 and then call this Epic Volume 2 and go a little bit further into the material in the omnibus and then have an Epic Volume 3? Like, the money's right there, Marvel. Anyway, so I just get annoyed. I get annoyed when they do these things. And this classic collection, by the way, was printed in 2016. So I had been really dragging my feet on getting this. And then finally I was like, all right, I guess I should get it if I'm going to get this other one. But actually I'm way more excited to have this because this to me feels kind of like an Epic collection, and a little bit less excited about this because when are we all going to get that other one in paperback? Funny enough, I have that whole run to bind. And so part of my debate about buying this is like, weren't you just going to bind that all? I could have basically everything in the omnibus, but in my own standard size hardcover, and I may still. But I didn't want to miss out on this book and like miss collecting. And I could always use this for binding, right? Take it apart and then get an adhesive binding and then use the original issues for the rest of it. Or maybe they'll issue those in paperback and I'll get to sell it. Who knows? Okay. A couple of small indie things here. Lady Mechanica, Volume 6, which is titled Sangre. Here's the thing. I've only ever read the first volume of this, and it's one of these things that I'm still buying out of rote buying it. And I'm really trying to get out of that mode. There's very, very few things I'm buying now for the collection that I haven't read unless it's like classic Marvel material. So at this point, if there's ever going to be a Volume 7, I have to read through Volume 6 before I get to Volume 7. We've drawn a line in the sand. I do like this. It reminds me of Wildstorm. It reminds me of Top Cow, but I can't say anything about it. And it's one of the rare ones where I don't buy it in digital single issues, even though I read so many things in digital single issues now, because I know I've got them on my shelf and I'm like, oh, you should read those. So it's kind of like at some point I've got to just put my foot down and read them. I kind of did that with Monstrous. I did that a little bit with Saga. There's a few of these books that debuted in like 2012 to 2015 range when I was really buying a lot of trade paperbacks that I still am buying out of rote, and I just need to sit down and read the dang things. And so I did read Monstrous and Saga all the way through last year. Maybe this is the year for Lady Mechanica. Okay. While we're on the indie tip, I do have a few other indie books here. Two of them are Lumberjanes. We know I love Lumberjanes, and I read the main Lumberjanes series, which has now concluded. So sad. I don't really know how to be a parent in a world without brand new Lumberjanes. It's existed pretty much the entire time I've been a parent. But these are two kind of supplemental Lumberjane books. They're adorable. This is a Lumberjanes original graphic novel called True Colors. It is written by Lila Sturgis with art by, I don't know this person's, oh, they don't have a first name. That's why I don't know it. By Poulter Inc. Poulter Inc. I really have come to enjoy Lila Sturgis over the past year. I read her Magicians series. I really liked it. I like this because the characters are somewhat on model, but they're a little bit different than how they look in the actual book. And it's got this really lovely black and white with blue spot color look, although there are a couple of rainbow color instances in here as well. Just really attractive and a really fun to read book that I'll have fun reading with the kids. So I buy everything Lumberjanes. We're going to have a complete Lumberjanes collection. Speaking of which, there's also this lovely little book. And I mean, look at it compared to a full-size comic book. And then even look at it compared to that Lumberjanes original graphic novel. It is pretty tiny. And it's called Lumberjanes, the Encyclopedia Lumberjanica. And the reason I love this, and I really love it, is Lumberjanes has a trope where when any of the girls exclaim something, instead of exclaiming, oh darn, they exclaim the name of a famous woman. And so they might say, holy bell hooks. And this book has a selection of some of those women and explains who they are in text pieces with some illustrations in them. And here is the lineup. Oh, you know what? I discovered with my daughter when we were looking at this, it doesn't have a table of contents, which is so annoying because it has all these really cool women in it and you can't even see who all they are. It doesn't say on the outside. It doesn't say anywhere. So I'm just going to page through and tell you. Juliette Gordon-Low, Octavia Butler, a great one. Sarah Robles, who is a weightlifter and Olympian. Oh my gosh. And then it gives some instructions on weightlifting. See, I love this kind of stuff. Nakano Takeko, a female samurai warrior. So cool. Bell Hooks, who's a teacher, an activist, a scholar. I know her as sort of a scholar of race and gender and feminist theory. Ching Shi, the most successful pirate of all time. I mean, I don't know if we're going to keep going. Sarah McBride, Mary Anning, just so many great stories. Sister Rosetta Tharpe, a legendary gospel singer and electric guitarist. Grace Hopper, so much great stuff. Ada Lovelace, Christina Szoznowska-Liszkiewicz, who's a sailor. Well, now we're in it. We might as well finish. Anne Bancroft, an actress. Jane Goodall, of course, very famous for her primate studies, and Sybil Luddington, who... Wow, this is fascinating. The British are coming. This was the fabled cry of Paul Revere to warn fellow American patriots that British troops were approaching. His famous ride was immortalized in Henry Wadsworth Longfellow's poem, Paul Revere's Ride, but he was not the only rider to make a midnight journey on horseback to rouse the countryside. During the Revolutionary War, 2 years after his ride, 16-year-old Sybil Luddington performed a similar feat of heroism in upstate New York. Like, this is cool because for every one of these people that you've heard of before, like Ada Lovelace, there's somebody like that one that maybe you've heard of them. I have not. And my kid loves this. I actually have already given it to her. It's one of the things I opened the boxes for, and I had to go and like snake it back from her room to be able to show it to you. It's really cool. Even if your kid is not reading Lumberjanes, if you just want to give them like a really cute little illustrated book of text pieces about famous women, maybe to generate some school assignments or to get them interested in all of these different things, programming, sailing, acting, guitar playing, this is awesome. And it was $10, like just perfect gift for any kid of any age in your life who you want to teach about historical women. Highly, highly recommended. And the other indie book I have here, which is not really indie, but it's kind of indie, is Captain Marvel, but it's Marvel Action Captain Marvel, which is from IDW. They do all the editing, they do all of the character work, and it's not technically in Marvel continuity. None of the Marvel Action books are, but this one is pretty close to being in Marvel continuity. Like if you just squint your eyes a little bit, you can kind of assume that it's in Marvel continuity, especially because it has Nadia Van Dyne as the Wasp, and it has her full Girl Labs supporting cast here, and they're written charmingly with all of the characteristics that they have as well. So I read this digitally, and I was like, this is adorable. I love it. It's just as good as Unstoppable Wasp, and it is just as good of a Captain Marvel title as Kelly Thompson's Captain Marvel. So I actually rate this just about as highly as I rate that ongoing title, sometimes a little more highly, if we're being honest. So I picked this up for the kid. She already has the first one. Highly, highly recommended. Super adorable. Appropriate for kids of all ages. And even if you are a grown-up kid, you will still find that it is the Captain Marvel that you love. Okay, now I have one thing before we get into the inevitable epic collections, and it is this. It is Defenders Marvel Masterworks, volume number 7. This is one of the Marvel Masterworks lines that's still alive, that I'm still stubbornly collecting, and part of that reason is because the epic collections started way, way later. They start with number 92, if I have them on the right order in my shelf here. And so we are nowhere near number 92, which is where these epic collections start. We still need probably another 2 Marvel Masterworks, because this one collects number 58 through 75. It's fairly thick for a masterwork. It's not the tiniest masterwork. So you figure if we're continuing to do something on the order of like 12 to 18 issues, the next one, I don't know if it really could take us all the way to 92. Maybe if there's no annuals or anything, what would that be, like 17 issues? It could happen. We could be one more of these away from getting to this epic collection. And then probably the epic collections will go back to the beginning and start collecting from volume 1 after the Defenders Omnibus is out. So I'm really looking to get out of the Marvel Masterworks game. I've really decided what my end book is in most of these Masterworks runs and where I'm going to cut them off. I'm not really interested in the idea of Masterworks continuing through like the 80s, 90s. I'm not looking for 90s Masterworks. So for Defenders, that next book, it might be my last one. I don't know if I need to go past that in Masterworks. Speaking of which, now we have the epics from this haul. The first one is one that turned out to be kind of controversial, and I think I actually thought about not buying it for a while, which is the Venom Epic Collection. This was printed in September 2020, so this was kind of contemporaneous. I ordered it right away. It collects Venom material from 1984, which is kind of a misnomer because he didn't like truly exist in 1984, right? That was just Secret Wars. In fact, Secret Wars didn't even start until after 1984. I don't know why it says 1984. And ending in 1992. So here's the thing with these Venom Epic collections and why they're controversial for a couple of reasons. Venom had a certain amount of appearances in Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man, mostly. And then he gets his own string of miniseries. And those miniseries, if you were to push them all together, and you can see this in my Venom guide, they account for like 60 plus issues. He basically had a 60 issue ongoing series that was just all miniseries. And Marvel very faithfully has collected those in a series of pretty chunky trades over the course of the last 5 years. I have them. I have a complete Venom bookshelf. I mean, somewhere in a box because I have to do shelf store or sell to find it. And I like Venom and I like 90s. So that's cool. This first Epic Collection, however, doesn't really get to any of those. It collects Amazing Spider-Man 258, 300, 315 through 317, 332 through 333, 346 through 347, Web of Spider-Man 1, Avengers Death Trap, The Vault, Darkhawk 13 and 14, and material from a bunch of other stuff. It doesn't have any of his actual series. So, on one hand, if you've been collecting all those chunky trades, this is a good buy, because this is all the Venom stuff kind of leading up to Lethal Protector and all those other classic series. On the other hand, if you have been buying Amazing Spider-Man epics all of this time, is there really a reason to get this? I have to assume, if it's not already, Avengers Death Trap would go in an Avengers epic, and all this other stuff is Spider-Man. So a lot of people who buy all the epic collections are like, why should I buy this if I'm buying the Spider-Man epics? But it's really one of these kind of volume zeros. They did one for Black Panther, sort of. They did one for Silver Surfer entirely. And because I've got that whole shelf of other stuff for Venom, it made sense to get this. Now the question is, will I keep buying subsequent volumes of this? Because I've got all the other stuff. Thing is, it looks like the epic collections are going to map exactly to the Venomnibuses, of which there are 3. And the Venomnibuses, they do collect a couple of things that are not in the miniseries along the way to give you a full Venom read. And if the epics are going to continue to obey that, they are going to have more than those other books. So it's kind of like, I like that Venom shelf. I don't care that it's not epic collections, but if it's going to collect additional things, especially kind of obscure stuff like Darkhawk issues that aren't really collected elsewhere, maybe I'm going to buy them. I don't know. So we'll get there. By the way, build quality wise, so this is 80s into 90s material. I'd be looking for a brighter white paper. Oh, this feels kind of flimsy. This is not the epic paper I'm used to. This is not printed by one of our like friends, like LSC Communications, right? That's one of the ones we like. I don't think it's going to be them. No, it is LSC. I feel betrayed. Maybe because this is so, I mean, it's pretty color saturated, because it's getting into the 90s, and you definitely want a paper that's got a little bit more gloss to hold that. But no, I feel like this paper it's really flimsy. It feels flimsy to touch. It's got some show through. Even on this page with a lot of yellow, I can see show through to the other side. Not a fan. Okay. Next we have Fantastic Four Epic Collection number 6, At War with Atlantis. This collects Fantastic Four 88 through 104 and Fantastic Four The Lost Adventure, which means this is the end of Kirby and Lee doing Fantastic Four, and we've got it all in Epic Collection. This is entirely written by Stan Lee. It's mostly penciled by Jack Kirby, along with a little bit of Romita and friends from after Kirby left the title. So this is generally considered like the golden age of Fantastic Four, the best Marvel comics from the Silver Age ever, etc., etc. They've done it in 6 volumes. They're all out now. You could have it in Epic, you could have it in Omnibus, you could have it in Masterworks. You have plenty of options. I've read some Silver Age Fantastic Four, but I haven't read this far, but I am pretty familiar with this material from making guides, just because so many people intersect with this. The X-Men briefly do, the Inhumans do. So I've been through these issues. We've got some Agatha Harkness here now, exciting and beloved for a totally different reason than she was a few months ago. So let's see, this paper, I feel like this paper is nicer than the paper in that Venom book. It could be my imagination. Maybe it's just the art looking more classic, but this paper, it just feels a little more substantial. But let's see. This was printed in September and October at LSC. So the papers could be different. Like the same printer can use different paper in different books, and Marvel might have an instruction on using different paper in different books from different decades. I have to say, I can see show in this Venom book, even turning a page that has all black on it and putting this Fantastic Four in the same exact spot. I do not see show through a black page. So I think that's actually subtly different paper, but I need to get out the calipers, and I don't have the right kind of calipers to know. Okay, 2 more books. This is New Mutants Epic Collection number 7, Cable. It collects from New Mutants 86 to 94, and then and none of Extinction Agenda. It's just 86 through 94. So there's been a lot of Cable and the New Mutants collections. Usually they start at 86 or 87. 86 is the tail end of Acts of Vengeance. This is all written by Louise Simonson, but Rob Liefeld has already joined the title at this point, and he's slowly kind of taking things over. It's fine. I mean, if you like Liefeld New Mutants and you want to see how he transforms the team, this is pretty much it, because then 95, 96, 97 are part of Extinction Agenda, and then after Extinction Agenda, it's basically X-Force. Usually New Mutants 98, 99 and 100 are collected with X-Force. This also has the Days of Future Present annuals, or at least the parts of the annuals that are relevant to the New Mutants in them. So it doesn't actually have the Fantastic Four annual. It also has the New Mutants Summer Special, which was a one-shot kind of annually story, but it's mega long. It's like 80 pages long. It's even longer than a typical annual. So that is part of why this book looks so big, even though you're saying, what? It only has 86 through 94. Yeah, but it has some annual stories, and it has that Summer Spectacular. Let's see, where was it printed? Manufactured between August and September of 2020 by LSC Communications. We're just on an LSC Communications roll here. And finally, one more epic that I'm actually pretty excited by is the Black Widow epic collection. This is epic volume 2. It's called The Coldest War, and it collects, I'm not reading this whole, it collects a lot of stuff, okay? Because Black Widow didn't have her own series really ever. So, do I have the other one? So in the volume 1, we collected basically early Black Widow appearances from Tales of Suspense, from Avengers, from Amazing Spider-Man just 1. Then she does have a sequence of solo stories in Amazing Adventures 1 through 8. I think alongside some Inhuman stories, I want to say, is the other story in the feature. And then she's in Daredevil for a while, but this doesn't collect this. It only collects Daredevil 81. And then some material plot pages from a bunch of Avengers. So this is pretty much silver into like mid-bronze Black Widow. And it recollects a lot of things that would hit other epic collections, like the Tales of Suspense, like the Avengers, because Tales of Suspense at that point was an Iron Man title in the story she was appearing in. But then it also has those 8 issues of her own story in Amazing Adventures. So like, cool, right? So then the question is, what is this epic volume 2? Because in addition to these two, there's also this Black Widow team-up book that collects her team-up appearances in Marvel 2-in-1 and Marvel Team-Up and Marvel Comics Presents. Are those in here too? So weirdly, no, which is, it's a strange choice because this book is pretty small and this is a kind of mid-sized epic. If you would put these together, you probably could have split them into 2 epics. Like, why would we have one non-epic? I don't really understand. But anyway, finally to what this contains. Bizarre Adventures 25, Marvel Fanfare 10 through 13, which is a pretty famous Black Widow story. Solo Adventures number 7, Black Widow The Coldest War, which is an OGN. Punisher Black Widow Spinning Doomsday's Web, another graphic novel. Daredevil Black Widow Avatar, another graphic novel. Marvel Comics Presents 135, which is not in this book. Daredevil Annual 10, Fury Black Widow Death Duty, yet another original graphic novel. And Journey into Mystery 517 through 519, which is Journey into Mystery briefly turned back into an anthology series after Thor went over to the Heroes Reborn universe after Onslaught, and Black Widow is one of the anchoring characters. So if you have these 3 books, then you pretty much have all of the significant Black Widow stories that are not just pure her on the Avengers leather jacket era, pretty much through like 1998. So that's pretty cool. I mean, and they did it as an omnibus. I don't know that I don't necessarily want an omnibus of a bunch of scattered things. I like that they do that. I highly encourage that. I think it's cool that they did it. But I would rather have this, and I've got it now, so hooray. Some of this stuff has never been collected comprehensively before, and clearly some of those OGNs will hit the other epic collections. Like, I would be sure that the Daredevil epics would have that OGN, and maybe it has already, I don't have that in front of me. But if you like Black Widow and you want to read her development, this is what you need. And I think we're done because this takes us through 1998. After that, Black Widow starts having actual series, and usually they don't epic too far past that 1998 line. So I think they're going to be reissued probably as complete collections, I would imagine. I have no insider knowledge. So that was this pretty big haul of a lot of really cool gaps, some that I know, some that I don't, and a few books that cause me to have some controversial feelings. So I'm really excited to get them on the shelf and to kind of like fill out those parts of the collection and to continue getting through my stack of orders from last year. So since this was like, I don't know, I guess it was just a big epic month because a lot of these things were printed in like August, September, October. And the other orders are much smaller than this. So I guess we just had a heavy epic month, maybe because things had been pandemic delayed. And then this was the first chance that they all had to come out. But no, but the printing is really late. I don't know. I'm not a scientist. I don't know the answer. So there will be more hauls around the world because I have this stack of boxes still to get through. It's just like up to my chin now. So please continue tuning in to see more of what I got here in Wellington. Yeah, it's a lot of epic collections because that's what I buy now. But hopefully it like elucidates some of the information about the material. And then sometimes we get cool stuff like that Lumberjanes book. Honestly, that might be my pick of this whole batch. Like there's great stuff in here, but that Lumberjanes book, $10, y'all. Get it for every single kid that you know. Oh, not that one. This one that I have to go put back in my daughter's room, or else I'm gonna get a talking to. So that's what I'll leave with you. That's what I'll leave you with. Thank you so much for being a part of another issue, another episode of All Around the World, and I hope you tune in again. And until you do, please be well.